I thought the reason that the room was so cold was because we were from Colorado and it snowed like crazy all weekend, so we feel right at home. Well, welcome everyone. It's great to be back here and it's great to see so many friendly faces. Welcome Kevin, thank you for coming because I was going to publicly shame you if you hadn't. It's great to see everyone again and be a part of this tradition. I can't even tell you what number of Safety Day this is for me, but I think the great thing is that since I left, it got even better, so there's something to that. First of all, I want to recognize the 3 people who are sitting in the front row. Thank you very much, appreciate that. I'm relying on you to give me all kinds of positive feedback and head shakes and right on. So we're going to give you each $1 for sitting in the front row.
Paying you to do.
So lesson to all you out there, front row is where it's at. And we seriously gave them $1. We were contemplating, we're like, how much money do we have? I have like 10 euro. I don't think that's going to help you. Anyway, welcome. You're welcome. Welcome everyone. We're going to talk today about how we implemented a near-miss program at the City of Fort Collins. And as Tim said, I'm Kelly Bernish. Here's our names, Kelly Bernish, and my colleague Rachel Bunn.
Hello everybody. If I start stuttering, it's just because I'm cold and not nervous.
See, when she knew we were coming to Florida, she wore something that you would wear in Florida, short sleeves. I knew what it was going to be like in here. I had a scarf so I could wrap myself up. So anyway, I am the Director of Safety, Security, and Risk Management for the City of Fort Collins. I also have my own consulting company, which is actually how I got to Fort Collins, and we'll talk a little bit about that journey. So at the city, our senior leaders were really frustrated because they felt like they were doing all the right safety things. And so why are we still having injuries if we're doing all the right safety things? And it was really interesting. The city of Fort Collins, just to give you some background, it's about an hour northeast of Denver, about 40 miles from the Wyoming border. And it's a really cool town. The Colorado State University is located there. So it's a college town, really great vibe. And they are really, really hyper-focused on excellence. Everything they do is about being the best. They win all kinds of awards. If you go online and just Google Fort Collins, it'll come up with all these awards they've won. We're applying for a Baldrige Award, which is unheard of for a municipality. They comply with OSHA regulations voluntarily. They know that that's not required of municipalities. How many of you actually work in government or municipalities? Okay, so few. So we voluntarily adopted OSHA's kind of minimum guidelines. Most everything that we do is well above those guidelines. So our senior leaders were really, really frustrated with, if we're doing all this stuff, why are we still having a lot of injuries? When they looked at the BLS data, is everyone familiar with BLS data? And we all know the problems with that data, but we take it as a benchmark, and our performance was still above that benchmark, and our leaders didn't like that. Everyone had the best of intentions. Everyone in the city, and this is the really cool thing, and this is why I went to work for them, everyone in the city wants to do the right thing. They embrace safety. They actually want to do the right thing around safety. But they didn't really understand, and that's what we're going to talk about, is the whole safety culture piece. They really didn't understand that. And the safety department really wasn't resourced the way that it needed to be to really make an impact on the organization. So this was all part of that process of kind of cracking that injury stalemate. How do we start really making a difference? We all know we can comply, but compliance doesn't necessarily mean less injuries. So in the case of Fort Collins, they decided, well, they had the foresight to say, and the insight to say, maybe we need to take a fresh look at this. Maybe we need to think of a new way of thinking about safety. And this is kind of where I came in. So I have my consulting business, and I had actually spoken at an event, an ASSE event, one of the big national events, and somebody from the city had seen me speak there, and they asked if I would be interested in bidding on a contract for some work around safety culture, and that was right up my alley. So I said absolutely. So it went through the competitive bidding process, and what they were looking for was someone who could come in and kind of evaluate where they were from a safety culture perspective and help them figure out what they needed to do to really impact injuries. So I came on board with them actually about 2 years ago as a consultant and worked for them for about a year, commuting back and forth to Colorado every couple weeks, and kind of came up with a master plan with the help of the executive leadership team. Now this is a very, very engaged executive team of people who, for them to make time for anything, let alone 4 to 8 hours at a time where we would talk nothing but safety culture, was a huge step for them. So it's kind of a great scenario. I mean, we had all the right things going on. So, and I realize that many of you don't have that luxury. So I will say that right up front. We had kind of the right environment to begin with. So I came in there, did extensive work with the leadership team, and they really engaged and kind of came up with a plan. And one of the things that we decided upon that we could really impact injuries with was tackling this whole notion of near misses, and how do we really seize that opportunity to make a difference? How do we take all that information that's out there that we're not taking advantage of and put it to good use? And I put this sign up here. This is one of my pet peeves. This, we have probably worked 365 days without an injury. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but this was one of those kind of misconceptions where people at the city thought, this is such a great thing. You know, we're putting up these signs and we're telling people, you know, how many days we've gone without an injury. And it took someone coming from the outside to say, you know, we really need to rethink this. This was maybe a good idea 20 years ago. But safety has evolved, and we've come a long way, and we're no longer really thinking about putting up how many days we've gone without an injury, because obviously what does that do? It causes lack of reporting. And so it was just really kind of changing that mindset for everyone and showing them a different way to look at it. So as I said, when we went through this process with the executive team, we really decided that there were all these near misses, or these really golden opportunities for us to learn from what was going on, and we were missing that opportunity. They acknowledged it as a priority, and there was a specific incident that happened that really made everyone turn the corner and say, yes, we have got to take this near miss information, and this is what's going to make a difference for our organization. So if you can see up there, I realize it's a little bit small, and I apologize to those of you who didn't sit up front and get the dollar. This is actually a piece of equipment. Does anyone know what this is? This little rocket? Nobody? Wow. Pardon me? No. What this is we, at the city, it's a full service city. So we have our own utilities, we have light and power, we have all of our water treatment, wastewater. And this actually is, they call it a rocket, and it takes a piece of tape through conduit so that they can run lines through conduit. And what they do is they put it in the conduit, and they build up air pressure on one side of it and shoot it through. Well, in this particular case, they couldn't get the line to go through, which happens often and is why they go through this process. So they put more air pressure behind it, and the guy on the other end of the line, he thankfully did not do that, didn't stick his face over it, but he actually put his foot on top of that other end to build up more pressure under it. And when they were ready to rock and roll, he lifts his foot off, that thing shoots through there and embeds itself right in the back of his leg. And we have the gory pictures to prove it. We didn't put it in the presentation because we thought that was a little over the top, but it literally was in all the way. He had to have it surgically removed from his calf. What we found out from this incident is that this had happened multiple times, not the injury, because this was, you know, if you believe in the whole accident triangle, this happened a lot of times before this catastrophic event happened. So when we sat down and did an after action review after this situation, we heard guys out in the field say, oh yeah, I was down in the pit one time and it whizzed by my head. I was down in the pit one time and one of those things shot out and, you know, hit me in the hand. So there were lots of opportunities to learn that there was a problem in this process. And when we went through it, we found out how we could improve it, how we could stop this from happening and still be equally as effective. But we were missing that message that was out there for us to take advantage of. And so this is kind of what sealed the deal and started us on this journey. So I'm going to show you, we have a series of videos in our presentation. This is the first one that we made, and this talks about what is a near miss and one of the things that we used as a tool for learning for our folks.
All right, well, I guess my story deals mostly with complacency. Last February, as I was doing some trail repairs at Maxwell Natural area, the particular piece of trail we were working on was in a low-lying area and held a lot of moisture, and so we decided to build the trail up about 12 inches above grade, and then the last step of that was to compact the trail with a double drum roller, like you see here. Now this is a piece of equipment that I've got probably about 1,000 hours of experience on, used it for many years now, and I feel pretty comfortable with it. While rolling the edge of the trail can be an inherently dangerous job if you're paying attention to what you're doing, it's perfectly safe, but I wasn't paying attention. Matter of fact, I had just gotten off the phone with my wife and had a conversation with her about our daughter's recent dentist visit and how she had 3 new cavities, and I couldn't understand how that would happen because I was helping her brush her teeth and floss every night. And well, anyway, while I'm thinking about all this, my mind slipped away from what I was doing, and I found myself too far out on the edge of the trail, and I couldn't go forward and I couldn't reverse, and it was going over and I was going over with it. I jumped free of the machine rolled over, I was safe, the machine was fine, and my initial reaction was just oh, I gotta pull this machine over as fast as I can before my coworkers get back because I don't want anybody to know about this. You know, thinking about it in hindsight, I thought this is a story that I need to tell. Had circumstances been different and that machine had enough momentum to continue rolling, it could have rolled on top of me and crushed me. And I didn't want to see that happen to any of my coworkers. You have these near misses that don't get reported, but everybody knows that they happen. Eventually, there's that one point where that near miss turns into an accident, and I think there's a lot of value in telling these stories.
So we really wanted to capitalize on the power of storytelling around safety, and we've done that a lot. But this was one of the stories that started coming out when we started talking about near misses and the importance of reporting. So there's a lot to be said about that video and different aspects of it, but the bottom line of that was here was a supervisor who came to us and told us this story, and immediately I said, this is something we have got to share with everyone, because it kind of brings in that it's okay to report near misses. In fact, it's expected. and the power that comes along with capitalizing on that information.
So our first step in the case study was to acknowledge that a lot of areas already had a reporting system. We have about 2,200 employees that kind of fluctuates throughout the year, 9,000 volunteers and 12 different departments. So you can imagine pulling all that together is kind of hard. So we decided to start with a pilot program, and one department, our water reclamation department. Our goal was basically to pilot the program and then combine all the other processes and make it into one citywide process. And so our ultimate goal was to prevent injury through communication, like you saw with the video. So we ran the actual program with our wastewater reclamation facility. We attended staff meetings, we just immersed ourselves in their culture, kind of got a feel for what they thought a near miss was, what their discussions around near misses or safety concerns were, if they felt comfortable talking about that. We observed their staff meetings, their safety meetings to kind of get a feel for, or is the conversation even going on? And initially there wasn't a conversation. Those safety meetings were an hour and a half and there was crickets, that's for sure. But by the end of it, we couldn't have enough time to talk about safety topics and safety concerns. A very important step that we took was meeting with focus groups. We kind of broke down each area and only had about 4 to 6 people in the focus groups to shop ideas and to kind of ask where they needed change, what was going to work for them. So why focus groups? I highly, highly encourage focus groups. They can be time consuming, but they're imperative. You really get channeled feedback. Again, when you only have 4 to 6 people, rather than a big room, chances are you're gonna get people interactive with you. You get buy-in and ownership. They feel like they helped create the program. They're taking it back to their coworkers and they're the ones telling you, hey, this is what I suggested, and they implemented it. They're your automatic advocate, and they're your #1 collaborator. When you're having an issue or they're having an issue, that's your prime partner right there to have that conversation.
And so I did want to acknowledge too our Buzz Lightyear Awards. So for my Disney pals out there, this is something that we implemented when I was at Disney. I hope you guys are still doing it, but I brought it to the city, that idea where we recognize, this is Oren, he's part of our IT team, and just became a real safety advocate for us through our focus groups, and he was one of our collaborators of the month that we gave our Buzz Lightyear Award to. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my Disney folks. So our focus groups, as Rachel had mentioned, we wanted to give you a couple tips if you decide to do it this way, or if you want to implement focus groups that can be used for the near miss program, but you could use it for rolling out a lot of different initiatives. Some things to kind of keep in mind and words of wisdom that we experienced was really making sure that when you do a focus group that it's representative of your employee population. You don't want to just have frontline employees, or you don't want to just have leaders, or you really want to have a nice mix of what really represents your population to make sure that you're getting feedback from all levels. Also, the importance of being focused. You don't want to just open it up and creating kind of my 4th bullet point there to avoid a general complaint session or just a big discussion on safety. While that's really good when you're doing your focus groups, you want to get that kind of channeled, focused feedback. So it's really important to also stay on track. Again, because you can kind of diverge really easily from the discussion point, especially if, you know, a lot of times your focus group people will be the people that are generally a little bit outspoken. So it's real easy to get off track and start talking about something completely different. So you want to be careful about that.
I just want to add to that. We went into those focus groups with specific questions. So we held multiple groups and they all had the same question that we kind of did a round table answer and suggestion about. So we went in with guidance, which really kept it on track.
Yep, so here are the question ideas. This seems super obvious, but was really important, we found, was actually asking people what they thought a near miss was. I don't know if any of you have had that experience before, but a lot of people think, well, it's like when you get injured and you're not really severely injured, so that's kind of like a near miss. So there is a lot of different definitions of what that is. So we wanted to get feedback from people what they thought it was. It also gave us some really good ideas about how to cue that with our employees, to say, I think one of the ones that came up was the accident that almost happened. That was someone's exact words, and we used those when we were promoting the initiative. Had they ever reported one? What was their experience when they reported it? Again, which definition resonates with them? We actually went with some definitions in hand, but we actually came out with some other ones. The other one is the easiest way to report. We really thought going into our focus groups that we were going to have people talk about technology and the importance of technology, and that certainly came up. But we were really surprised to hear how many people, and it wasn't just people, you know, over the age of 50 or however you want to stereotype people. It was even some of our younger employee population that said, you know what, I just want to be able to write it on a piece of paper and throw it in a box. And then we also talked about what barriers they kind of perceived in terms of reporting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what did we learn from the focus groups? This was really an opportunity for us to identify vulnerabilities, what our vulnerabilities were. Again, the unclear definition of a near miss. We also found out we needed more ways for people to report, and this was a big part of our work. Also, the fear of retaliation and punishment. Has anyone ever experienced this with safety? People feeling like, I can't say that because I'm ratting out my coworker, or I don't want to tell on myself, and I'll get fired. So there was a lot of that, even though the city of Fort Collins is one of the most benevolent, loving working environments I think I've ever worked in. There still was that deep felt fear of this whole notion that they were going to be punished if they told stories about these near misses. Lack of recognition, feedback, and follow-up, and what I mean by that is people felt like in the past they may have reported a near miss and then nothing ever happened. It just went into this black hole. There was never any feedback about it or what happened with it. There was also this feeling that it was actually creating more work. Why do I want to do this and create more work for myself? I want to just come into work and do my job and go home at the end of the day and forget about it. Unions can also be a big factor in this. We are not widely unionized at the city, but we do have unions, and this was something that we had to work through. We had to work with the bargaining units and work through how does this fit into that agreement scenario that we have. And then also the language barrier. We had some gentlemen earlier this morning that were talking about mostly the Hispanic workforce and the language barrier issue, and certainly at the city it's not a huge problem for us, but we do have language barriers and literacy issues as well. So at the close of the pilot program, so Rachel had mentioned, and this is actually the team, I don't know if you can see this, but this is at our wastewater treatment plant. We rolled this pilot program out at, and this is not your most, I don't want to say cooperative, but I'll say cooperative group or open group, but again, working with this pilot program with them really made them feel that buy-in into this whole concept, and they actually celebrated at the end, you know, being a part of this process, and it really kind of came together for them, and they've developed really one of the most robust safety cultures in the area. The value of what they did, we wanted to make sure that we communicated how much we appreciated the work that they put into it, and what we actually took out of that process. And then also, how do we move forward with this? We had really kind of got this down to a nice science with this group. Now how do we take it and really translate this to the bigger part of the city?
So our takeaways from the pilot program, that lasted about 60 days. We ran that, maybe even closer to 90. Again, there was a lot of confusion between a near miss or a safety concern or a hazard, and so we kind of thought, does it matter? As long as they're reporting, we don't want them to have to say, well, it's not really a near miss, it's more of a safety concern, so I don't want to talk about it. No, we want to hear it all. So we just combined them. We use the words near miss and or safety concern. We don't want them to have to distinguish it. We'll distinguish it ourselves as long as they're reporting it. Something else that came out of that are the avenues for reporting. It was important and imperative to have a variety of ways to report. So, of course, the paper and pencil in the Dropbox. We created a texting where they just text to an email address. Anybody can set that up. It's not its own phone number. It's just texting to an email address as long as you have a smartphone. We created a hotline. There's nobody at the other end of that hotline. It just goes to a voicemail. But if for our crews that are out working in the field, it's just easier for them. They thought it would be easier for them just to make that phone call. This is what I experienced. I want to capture it. They're done. And then also just sending an email and talking to your supervisor. With those avenues of reporting, I want to just mention the importance of allowing a system to remain anonymous, and we'll get more to that later, but it is important to have that available. That's not what you want to drive, but it needs to be available just in case that's the only reason they're not reporting. They established a safety team, so the wastewater reclamation facility, they established a safety team to kind of help drive the change and take ownership of the items that they're trying to change and the reporting system itself. So as they received reports, that team was in charge of ensuring that the mitigation was occurring. They developed a tracking system, so they use an Excel spreadsheet and an internal system, and that department tracks how many days it took to close out those near misses, which is really important to them. And they have kind of little battles between their groups with that. So also, each department is going to be different. You have to approach each department a little bit different. They have their own cultural norms. One avenue doesn't fit everybody, so you really have to tailor it to that group. You know, our parks department isn't going to be the same as our utilities department. So you really have to put out feelers for what's going to work for that area specifically. So our employee engagement increased dramatically. Again, the focus groups is a very important avenue for creating that buy-in and your advocate. Following through, one thing that we heard over and over again is this just going to be another initiative that's gone in 30 days? Is this just going to fall through and we have to start a new program next? So following through, and it's okay if you have to change it along the way, but following through with what your initiative is imperative because we all have 100 initiatives going on. They wanted more communication, so they want to know what's going on with my report. Is somebody going to fix it? What is the time frame for it being fixed? Just talking, even if you can't fix it that day or that week, letting them know that you appreciate it, you've received it. It may take a month, it may take a year, depending on the budget, but just that it's been received, their voice has been heard. That was imperative. And of course, incentivizing, just like our dollar bills up here. We have drawings monthly, so we collect everybody's report in a system, and we do monthly drawings for gift cards, safety material, just whatever you have. It really helps. It's such a simple thing, but it really helps. And just have fun with it. We post pictures on our website of our winners, our internal website, and you can't believe how many people are like, who's next? Who's next? They look forward to it every month.
So that all sounds rosy and good and like it really happened really easily, but it was a lot of hard work. Rachel was one of the leads on this project, and so it wasn't quite as easy as that sounded. sometimes when you're rolling something like this out, you actually need to be prepared to go back to the drawing board or be prepared to reboot completely. I have had this experience before with trying to roll out a program where you come back and you get complete rejection. And so just to kind of give you some ideas, if you experience that, is getting feedback from key partners and senior leaders. So while we did these focus groups, we actually shopped the ideas with our stakeholders and with our leadership team. Obviously, we wanted them to be on board as well. The whole notion of conducting full-scale focus groups. So we talked a little bit about doing the focus groups for our pilot program, but we actually went in and did full-scale focus groups throughout the city that was really representative of that population, and that was really enlightening for us. Again, there's this whole notion of best of intentions. People think they're doing the right thing, they think they're thinking of things the right way, and that's why we as safety professionals need to be that resource for them to kind of calibrate them and make sure that they're thinking of it in the right way. Their ideas of safety and yours could be completely different, so you need to be prepared to adjust. One-on-ones are really important. The city and a couple other companies that I've worked for and worked with can be very collaborative environments, and I would suggest that that is what you have to do in order to get things done anywhere, is that whole collaboration and meeting with your peers individually. It may be not a focus group, it may not be, talking about it in a meeting, it may actually be making an appointment with someone and going in and meeting with them one-on-one. Also, do they feel like you're ramming this down their throat? Sometimes we get a little evangelical around safety, so you need to be prepared for that and need to, kind of take a step back and look at what you're doing and make sure that people think that or believe that they are owners in this process, and it's not just, as Rachel said before, not just kind of program du jour or safety's ramming something else down our throats. It really has to be their idea. You need to be a true partner for your folks that you're supporting out there, and not just someone who executes what they want. As I said before, it's being that safety expert and providing that other thought process or opinion or idea of what is right. As I said, the importance of getting everyone on the same page individually. And then you may want to refocus and say, okay, this is all the information I've had one-on-ones, I've met with leaders, we've done meetings, we've done focus groups, we've heard all that feedback, and take it back to your leaders and re-present it, saying, we've gotten all this feedback, we heard you, we don't want to be ramming it down your throat, we don't want to be causing you extra work, here's what we're going to do to address that. So it's that whole notion of really being a partner with the folks that you're working with.
So you're ready to roll it out now, right? You've done all your homework. So in rolling it out, it's imperative to take every communication opportunity that you have. Get on agendas, attend meetings, ask for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, show a video, give an example. We use the example of the rocket story every time we roll this out. It was relatable, it was impactful. Present as often as you can, create communications. I don't know how many flyers we've made. We have some examples up here that you can grab after. We have 2 up here. Just posting them, you really can't talk about it enough. And share what others have reported. That was a big thing that was asked is, well, what are other people talking about? So on our website, we kept it anonymous, but just kind of gave some basic examples of what's been reported so far. What happens in one department could be going on in another department. And like I said, you really can't talk about it enough. Just when you think you got through to somebody, you ask them how they report, and they have no idea what you're talking about. So don't assume that they've heard you just because you presented to their department one time.
Okay, So here's what happened. After we rolled it out, we really felt like there was an awakening that opened other safety conversations. So, and this is something you really need to be prepared for, where all of a sudden it brought this attention to this new idea, and it really got people to start thinking about safety in a different way. So a lot of things came up out of this whole rollout of the near miss program. People felt like they finally had an avenue to talk about it. It was formalized, and they felt like they had a process that they could go to, which was really good. We also had to look at how do we streamline existing processes. I think Rachel mentioned earlier that there were already some pockets of near miss programs out there. They all had to be tweaked and kind of, we established this overarching framework, but people didn't want to just completely give up their program. So we had to figure out how do we take this whole spectrum of work that's already going on and create something that everyone can live with. For example, we had some people using Excel spreadsheets, we had some people using SharePoint, we had different technologies, and we had to figure out how do we least impact those people and keep that good work going. Of course, when we kind of opened these floodgates, all of a sudden we had a lot of work to do. There were a lot of projects and a lot of really kooky ideas and a lot of really great ideas out there. And so we want to acknowledge them all and figure out how do we prioritize these? How do we make sure that everyone knows these are all important? We may not have $10 million to build a bridge across the street so nobody has to walk across it, but here's what this is how we're going to prioritize it, and this is what we're going to present a budget offer or whatever that may be. And also the other thing that we found out happened is we felt so good after we rolled this out. There was so much work that went into this, and we were yay us and feeling really good, and then all of a sudden we had this huge spike of near miss reports, and then all of a sudden it just kind of died off. And so you have to really think about that in terms of your ongoing marketing, your ongoing communication, is how do you keep that energy level up instead of kind of having these ebbs and flows. All of a sudden we really pushed communications, and we actually rolled out a metric around it, and we kind of developed that interest again, and so we want to keep that from ebbing again. So it's something to make sure that you consider, and again, it isn't the program du jour. So we also thought we'd include a slide about just some random thoughts of things that came up during this process. What if you're inundated? How are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle if all of a sudden you just get all these work requests, all these discussions about things that maybe are just too big for you to conquer? How are you going to handle that? How do you integrate it into your metrics? People wanted to have a metric out there around near miss reporting. Instead of just the typical DART and TRIR and all those kind of lagging indicators, we wanted to develop a metric around a leading indicator. How many people have had challenges with handling discipline around safety issues? Only one? Wow. You guys are awesome. So I've had that problem with every client I've worked for. But this is an issue because people are going to want to know, so if I report this near miss, is someone going to get in trouble? Or am I going to get in trouble? And so you need to be ready to address that right up front as to how that's going to happen. And my personal philosophy is there are only a handful of things that I feel warrant discipline around safety. Generally speaking, I don't think we've had any situations that have come up with all the near misses we've had reported that we felt like there should be some discipline associated with it. So handle that very carefully. Also, pictures worth 1,000 words. We really encourage people to send us pictures, and we post those and send them out in communications. As Rachel said, we have some sample communications up here. And please, I'm a firm believer in R&D, rip off and deploy, anything you want from us. And how do we tell a story from these? As we said, we've created these videos. We're actually starting to produce some homegrown YouTube videos and having our employees out there shooting some YouTube videos for us. So there's so many things to take advantage of. We're lucky we're associated with our own cable TV station that helps us produce these. Although I will say, Todd, the video that you first saw, he did that in one take with no script. He was so awesome. So just utilize whatever technology you have available to you. Everyone can do a YouTube video. Here's another video for you. This is one of our leaders in our utilities.
Hi, I'm Carol Webb. I work in the utilities department. I've worked for the city for 18 years. There are two things in my life that I could talk about related to taking very simple safety measures, but to a great benefit. My father, who is a farmer in Iowa, he's in his early 80s now, but he's been farming, since he was in his 20s. He spent a lot of time on tractors, and he had this one tractor in particular, which was a farm-all, but this particular tractor was very, very noisy, very loud. My dad would say it was so loud that he couldn't hear himself think. Years and years of that without wearing any kind of hearing protection really did its toll on his hearing. Now today he wears hearing aids, but he really still can't hear. And he talks about today about how he feels lonely really when he's in a room full of people because he can't hear what anybody is saying. He can't be a part of the conversation. And I think he feels that the quality of his life today isn't as good as it could be. He definitely wishes that he had made different choices then. My second story is about my first husband, Jason. We had dated in high school and we knew each other actually since first grade, but we had been married about a year and a half, and he was driving on his way to work, this was in the Midwest, and what they think a deer ran out in front of him, and he went off the road and his car flipped upside down, and he was actually thrown from the vehicle and was killed. He was 23 when he died from not wearing his seatbelt. It was a tragedy for his family and for me as well. Basically everything that he could have been was gone in an instant because he wasn't wearing something as basic as a seatbelt. So when I think of safety, I don't think about the big things, the complicated things that you can do. I guess my lesson is that think about the precautions that I can take today, like wearing adequate hearing protection, like wearing a seatbelt. Things that you can do that are pretty simple steps, but that can really make a huge impact later on in your life.
So great impactful stories that we want to share with people, and we also are really driving the whole message of safety 24/7 because we feel like you can't be completely reckless and crazy off the job and suddenly cross the threshold to the workplace and become a safe person. So we really are pushing the message of talking about safety stories and sharing near misses around things off the job as well.
There we go. So where we are now, again, we created several avenues for reporting. We have an online system that is on our intranet. You can text or email. We have the hotline. We encourage just talking to your supervisor or to our department. And we also have another system that Fort Collins implements, Access Fort Collins, so citizens can report as well as employees. We thought it was important because to make these cards, because every time we tell somebody, yeah, report that, they could never remember how. So we hand them these cards. We all carry these on us, just a little business card. I'm going to have these up here too if you want to take one. And it just lists all the ways that you can report. So that way you can say, keep it in your glove box, keep it in your wallet, keep it at your desk. And now we're starting to see these all around. We put them in the bathrooms, we put them everywhere. Again, you really can't talk about it enough. We also start and encourage our departments to start their any meeting, safety meeting, any meeting, with a safety moment, story, or near miss. So we always ask, and we encourage leaders to ask, does anybody have a 2-minute safety moment, safety story, near miss, safety concern, just so that that's the norm. That's how you regularly start out your meetings. Again, you can't talk about it enough.
So we just put together this little graphic for what the actual process is. So you can kind of follow that yourself, but really this shows when someone reports it, we collect the data, it then goes to, CitySafe is the brand that we created for our safety, security, and risk management department. We had the logo developed and all of that, but CitySafe receives it and helps mitigate if need be. We really encourage employees to just fix it on the spot if they can, but with the caveat that if they do that, we still want them to put that into our system, and we have a checkbox for them to indicate that they resolved the issue or they fixed the problem. But we want to capture that because, again, we have developed a metric that people are really proud of, and we want to make sure that we're capturing all of those near misses and safety concerns that are being reported. And then there's the follow-up piece with the customer. So we follow up with every single employee that doesn't report it anonymously, obviously, and we put that, if you report this anonymously, we are not going to be able to follow up with you, because you'd be surprised how many people call us up and say, I reported a near miss and I haven't heard a word from you guys about it. Well, did you report it anonymously? Well, yes. Okay. Here's the deal. So, and then we included the Plan, Do, Check, Act circle in this because oftentimes it's not just an instant fix. There's other things that have to happen and things that go on in that process.
And although we have the option to remain anonymous, I will tell you that most of our reports are not anonymous because employees want to look forward to the follow-up and they want to know what's going on and they want to confirm that they've been heard and their voice has been heard. So I will tell you, as important as that is to have that option, that's not the majority of our reports. The majority give us their name and number and contact information.
And they want a prize. That's the other piece.
Yeah, and they want a prize. So where we are now, as far as tracking goes, we still have multiple systems going on throughout the city, so we're really trying to capture that into one system that's easier for us to track as well as everybody else. We've utilized SharePoint, we have Excel sheets, again, an internal system on our intranet. How can we people?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that people can actually access these, to go in and look at it so they can see the progress. So SharePoint is really great for that. You can go in, show who owns it, what's going on, where is it in the process, and we want to be able to have something where people can check on it on their own and not have to rely on us reporting back to them.
Important for us and them. Yeah, less time consuming for us. The importance of follow-up. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it really has been a key element into this whole initiative. Again, people want to know that they've been heard because then you have buy-in. They become your program advocate. When they have a personal experience of being followed up with and they get an answer to a concern, they take that back to their team. I can't tell you how many people have started with, well, so-and-so told me they reported this, so I really wanted to tell you about this. And it's just that person-to-person communication, and those have been our biggest advocates, those that we've been able to follow up with.
So, and finally, we just want to talk a little bit about sustaining and revitalizing. As I said, you can get those ebbs and flows, so you really need to be careful about that. Really develop a marketing plan when you go about this. How are you going to do this? What's your communication plan going to be if you're going to incentivize it? Keeping it fresh, be prepared with new messages and new ways for people to think about this. And as Rachel said before, communication is so important. You say it a million times and you think you've communicated in every possible way and you've said it in every venue that you've been, and then people say, no, I haven't heard of that. And you just go, okay, we'll start again. So 1,000 times is not enough. And then finally, the executive team. make sure that they're ready to talk it up. I went to our executive team meeting and I said, I need every one of you to report a near miss. I know that each of you have had one or know a story you can put in there. I want you to go in there because when our employees go in there, they see that who is participating in the program. And it's no good if your executive team is not an active participant in there. So make sure that happens. We are, as I said, extremely blessed that we have a very engaged executive team. Our city manager is phenomenal, and he actually wanted to make one of our videos. So I'm going to share that with you now.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for this video segment focusing on safety. I love the idea that we've set as a goal being the safest workplace in America. Both safety in the workplace, but also safety at home. Could you imagine having a goal about safety anything less than that? I think stories have an impact as well. I have stories from when I was a little kid when my father was injured and remembering how I was impacted as a little 8 or 10-year-old boy when my dad didn't come home from work one day. It's not always about data and facts. It's about the impact that these stories have on our lives. If someone sees that something's going on that may not be safe to either ourselves or a colleague or to citizens, how do we build a culture where you point those out? The intent would be that we care for each other and we want to help. You see something going on, please point it out. I do care about each and every one of you, and I know our executive leadership team feels the same way. What if we had a culture where safety mattered just as much as getting the job done? That will help us get to our goals and achieve this aspirational goal of being the safest workplace in America.
So that's our story. And I hope you enjoyed that and found that helpful. We're available for questions. I don't know if we have any time. I know we got a little bit of a late start, but we're happy to take questions. We're also going to leave some materials up here, our cards and some of our communication. So thank you very much. Thank you, front row.